To take you back to the Marikana commemorations, this time through the eyes of a video journalist. Sebabatso Mosamo was an intern photographer when the Marikana massacre happened. She arrived in Marikana a day after the massacre. Mosamo says arriving in Marikana was intimidating. Newzroom Afrika's Zikhona Tshona compiled this report.
I'm Sebabatso Mosamo. I currently work as a video journalist for the Associated Press. I have about 14 to 15 years in the industry, where I've worked as a photographer, a writer, and I've done some radio work. I wanted to be a part of the story. I knew that what we were watching was not ordinary. This is not normal news, if you get what I'm saying. This is huge. And I wanted to be a part of the story. You know, like, it's different when you arrive on the ground. What you see on TV and what you see on the ground are two completely different things. Like the sheer numbers and all of these men in their blankets and their sticks and spears and all of that, it was very intimidating for me. And as a student photographer, I had an entry-level camera. I didn't have a zoom lens, so we call it zooming in with your feet. So I had to be really, really close to where they were. And I remember just feeling sheer intimidation. There was a story that I could tell, particularly as a black female photographer, you know, that I could have a different sort of like take on it. So I wanted to be a part of that. It is also an industry that is dominated by men, so you don't see a lot of women in the front lines, especially doing camera work. And I remember just feeling so out of my depth with them. And I remember feeling their eyes on me. The miners went through specific rituals that they did as men, and with other men, they had access to that. Me being a woman, I had to be quite close, and for them, they were like, what is she doing here? But they were funny. They were kind. You know what I mean? There was element of lightness in between all of this in terms of on a human-to-human interaction. You know, and I wanted to capture some of that. You know, so in all of this anger and disgruntledness that they were going through, they were still human beings.
We was not fighting because we don't have the guns. We don't have everything.
It hurt. I understood their plight. I understood their plight because they looked like my uncle, they looked like my cousin, they looked like my neighbor. They're human. They are human. As scary as they looked, they were human. They were my brothers. They were. I don't know how to explain it. Like, there was a camaraderie that kind of like develops over time. I mean, if you're covering a story long enough, you do build a relationship with the people that you're working with on a day-to-day basis. I remember long, hot days, you know, where, you know, they will offer me water, or somebody will go and buy me a cool drink, or whatever the case may be. There is a relationship that you build over time, because we do have this tendency also as journalists where we parachute in and parachute out of spaces, right? But with a situation like that where you're spending a lengthy amount of time, you're building relationships. I know I have relationships with some of the men there even today. I mean, we had to run with them, you know. I think that's one of the things that I really remember, was just like the sheer amount of like cardio that we had to do just to keep up with the story, you know. They were an active group of men, and you had to keep up. I never really got to interact with the women, well, for me personally, because again, you end up kind of like covering the story where it is. You know how newsrooms have a particular sort of way of doing things, you know what I mean? For me, I was a student and I wanted to capture this moment, so I was where the men were a majority of the time. You know, every time I look at the visuals of the actual shooting, I still get a tear in my eye, like every time. Like the sound of those bullets, like it's like popcorn. Right? And I remember there's a part where they're like, ceasefire, ceasefire. I'll never forget that. Like after all of that shooting, somebody called ceasefire. Those guns should never have been fired to begin with. There would have been many ways to control that crowd before firing live bullets. So to this day, every time I see those visuals, it still brings a tear to me. For me, I can't believe it's been 10 years. It feels like it was just the other day when it happened. And the saddening thing for me is that 10 years later, what can we say as a country has changed for these people? I can't tell you. I don't think anybody can tell you what's changed for them. It's the same. We commemorate them every year. It's like August is a month where we get to remember them, and then after that we carry on with our lives, and nothing has changed. And I think that is the saddening part for me, you know. We had a whole commission. What did the commission do? What did it do? I can't tell you. And if you go on the ground and you ask them, they will tell you that nothing has changed for them, except that they lost loved ones, and today they are still trying to make the most of what they have right now. But nothing has changed, not materially, not in terms of the spaces that they occupy. Like Marikana looks exactly the same. It's still the same dirt roads. You know, nothing's changed. If we were to repeat what had happened in 2012 today, the backdrop wouldn't have changed. Nobody's going back to ask the actual questions. We do the commemorations every year, but nobody's asking how life has changed for these people. Over the years, I've built up a lot of resilience. I've seen that there is a strength in me that I didn't know I had before. There is an ability in me to be human on top of being a journalist. Because then there is an idea that being a journalist, you're supposed to be a fly on the wall and you can't interact. And I feel like empathy and storytelling make a huge difference in the kind of stories that you end up telling. And I think it has taught me to be open to seeing the human element of my job. I'm not just an instrument. I am a human being dealing with other human beings, and I think it goes a long way in the kind of stories that I do tell.